are not average people. They might not like your face, they might not like your color, they might not like your accent, but they shouldn't be able to discard your results.
Absolutely.
So
that's the Nigerian in you.
Yeah, and because it's very competitive, I say no, you're not competing against time. You're not competing against others, because now it's like others are getting 70s. I think I'm okay being a 90. You're like, no, you're competing against your past
Yourself.
best.
Yeah.
If your past best was a 95, then you need to compete to get 100. You are not competing against anybody. And that's why we make sure, no matter what, every day, 3:45 to 4:45 a.m., you do 1 hour of maths. It's not negotiable. 7 p.m. to 7:30, you do have an hour of French. It's not negotiable. Even in summer.
Yeah. So I feel like in talking about this, there are different goals. Bosun, I think you're on mute. Were you speaking?
Yes, I was speaking. I just wanted to sorry, on what CJ just shared, and I think it's great. The more we have these conversations, the more educated we become as parents. But one thing that he said that I want to own on to was that thing about the balanced diet. And even based on our last conversations around how do we get comfortable, I think part of the relearning that we need to do is to develop our children to have options, right? Because we're not just, and I say, like, if a child is passionate about sports, that's great. But if you go play soccer one day and you have an injury, what happens? Does your career end? Now your options kick it. Now, what are the options we want to give them? We want them to be socially responsible. For example, it's like paying tons of money to go to an Ivy League school to get an MBA, and then you came out as the best graduating student, not knowing anybody else.
Anything, yeah.
That's a waste of money. That's because the
absolutely
just education, it's networking. So we want them to have options, have social strengths, have academic strengths, have that balance, because those options are things that they can rely on in future. And options is what we're also practicing as adults in multiple streams of income.
Absolutely.
That them to be able to develop the skills that allows them to also have those multiple options. And I think that's one challenge that we also have, because we're brought up to always say that a child must always have 100. I'm never a party to that. I feel like a child should succeed academically, yes, because that's the basics, right? But once you have done that, what else happens? Beyond you succeeding academically, what other things do you want to become? And what other things do you want to build to make you that well-rounded and all? And I feel like some of our children's strengths is not going to be in the books. That's why I said, when we're setting those goals, yes, academic goals are great. We want to set them. We must also set goals that matches the strengths that we have.
Of the child, yeah. So just on your point, so I was just going to say that in terms of goal setting, the one that we can all agree is academic goals. That's the easiest because we want them to go to school. But there are other goals. If you have a child that is a bully, for example, your goal for that child, and your child must buy into it, is to show kindness. So there are other intangible goals that we can work with our kids to set. So there is value goals, right? What kind of value system are you trying to build? There is also responsibility goals. We have some kids that don't do chores, right? I go to some houses where you get there, the parents are the ones doing the hoovering, the parents are the ones washing the dishes. And basically, we've just said, they can't do it right. So you've just pushed them to one side. That's a different set of goals. We want to build kids that can do things for themselves, because we're not going to be there forever. So just talking about the different types of goals. So I've just mentioned the academic goals. There's also value-based goals. There is also responsibility goals. I'm just wondering, your opinions as to the other types of goals that we can work with our kids to set for themselves, and just work with them to do it.
Those are the way that I kind of see those kind of goals, particularly like the chores and stuff, is more of building life skills for themselves, right? Because if we all grew up in Nigeria, we all know that we had to do certain sort of skills, certain sort of chores in order to build some skills, like being able to wash your own clothes, being able to clean after yourself, clean up after
Being
yourself,
able to cook,
being
whether
able
you're
to
a boy or a girl.
no matter what the case is.
Yeah.
And I remember I'll have conversations with some of my colleagues, and I'm like, my 12-year-old daughter and my 7-year-old, every Saturday morning, it's not negotiable. They take all the laundry downstairs, the 7-year-old sorts it out, and the 12-year-old helps to like load the load the laundry. When it's done, they bring it up, we fold together. And they're like, oh, do you pay your kids for that? No, they're learning life skills. Because if I'm not there, they have to be able to do it by themselves. It's the same thing with washing dishes. It's the same thing with cleaning up after themselves. Because the other thing is, how is it that I heard so many stories, kids go to college and they're like, they bring their laundry back home because they don't know how to do laundry.
Yeah.
How are we building? They have to be able to be independent themselves and to be able to make those kind of decisions for themselves and those kind of skills. And it's also the
Critical.
Diligence, right? Like when I have to do something and I need to do something, I can go ahead and do it. I don't have to rely on somebody else to be able to do it. So it's building those skills. It's towards the point that Taiwo had mentioned before, being able to build up to those skills, not only just to be able to do laundry by themselves, but also in any other thing that they have to do. They know that, oh, this is a skill that I can build, and they can always apply it. It's like it can be applied across the board, So do think that in the balanced diet, they have to know how to, the academic goals, they have to know family values. My daughter, for example, in school, she has, they have the whole academic stuff, and they do have opportunities to volunteer as an ambassador. And I remember the very first time they had that opportunity to volunteer, I said, oh yes, you're gonna volunteer. She goes, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm like, okay, when you joined the school, how did you feel when you joined the school? And the role of the ambassador is really to be able to work a brand new kid through the school, to introduce them to the different places in school and what they can do, the activities that are available and stuff, or to introduce prospective student parents through the school. So then I asked them, like, when you started the school, did you have someone to introduce you to all the classes, all the buildings, all the activities that they had, all the options? She said, yes. How did you feel? Oh, it was really good. It was very informative. I'm like, that's what you're going to be doing for somebody else. Because if you're not doing, if you do not have that, you won't feel comfortable like this. So being able to volunteer, so you're building that kindness in them, to be able to actually show someone else. Just because you received it from someone else, you can always give back. So little stuff like that. And that's where I'm like, you raise that to them, and then, they understand what it is, and they can actually go full force and be able to actually do that.
Great. So we've talked about academic goals. We've talked about value-based goals. We've talked about building life skills. It doesn't have to be everything. It can be one, it can be two. Just take it in bits. 2024, I'm going to support my child to learn this, and something that you work with that child on. So financial goals. I know some people feel like, there's a timing to that. Like, when do you really start to teach your child how to, save? Because they want everything good. And, these kids are lucky. Some kids are lucky. And when, kids are born into this lucky world, there's a sense of entitlement that comes with it. And we don't want entitled kids. We want kids that appreciate the little that you give. And so sometimes you have to, teach them how to value money. Not that every time we go shopping, I want this, I want that, I want this. What else can you use your money for? You want McDonald's. What else can you divert that McDonald's money into? Kids also learn by watching you. They see how you work hard. They see how you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that. So even if you're not necessarily telling them you need to be an entrepreneur, they see all the many things that you're doing. I saw it in my mom. My mom was a teacher. She had a shop. She was sewing. I think at every point in time, she was doing 4 or 5 different things. And I used to I'm like, why are you doing so much? And she would say, because I can. She's never been stranded. She said, I've never been broke. Even if one door shuts, I always know that there's something else. You know, by default, I just somehow I'm beginning to see that this thing that I used to complain about, I'm slowly becoming her. So I think even though she didn't teach me to say, come and sew, come and, cook, come and bake, she was doing everything. I now find that I sort of learned it because I grew up in it. And so because I watched her, I saw how she gave herself to different things and how she could multitask and be successful and be happy at the same time doing God knows how many things. So let's talk about, what our kids are seeing us doing in terms of, they're watching us. Are we setting? So it's good to say, oh yeah, right goals. These are the goals, but ourselves, are we setting the right examples for them to emulate? Or maybe you guys might feel it's not necessary. I feel it is, just from my own experience.
I absolutely think that it is. And I think that the best way to teach our children is not just to tell them, but to do those things so they can see us doing them and start to emulate those things. I really like the point TJ made around financial goals and how that particular family has been able to, teach the children about finances. And I think that's great, something that I want to take away today. But I try to think back at something that happened in my family. Like one day, we took away all technology and we said, go read your books. And my son was bored from reading and he got creative. And I was in the meeting. And of course, I was in the meeting all day and I'm like, don't disturb me. And he didn't disturb me, seriously. Went to the kitchen, made lemonade with sugar and whatever, went out of the door. And I just thought it was just in the foyer or something. And he went to the neighbors and started to sell his lemonade. And he made $2. And then he came back proudly and showed me the $2. I'm like, but I was still in a meeting. I wasn't even listening or hearing. So when I finished, I wanted to hear the story. And then he told me, the first thing I said was, yay. You black mom in a neighborhood where you're not all blacks, you don't. First thing I thought is, would they think he's hungry? Have they been bothered? I was so livid. I'm like, why would you do that?
That's the natural instinct.
What you gave them. I thought of all the terrible things. Then my husband came in and I told him, like, please, could you walk into the place, return the money, apologize as much as possible because I was still working. And then my husband came back and I was sober because the person said, oh, you have no idea how he sold this to me. That I wasn't even interested. He said he gave me extra, told me the benefits of it. He said, see, whatever you do, don't kill the fire. And I was humbled because our first reaction is based on our fears.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's based on our background and all of that.
Yeah.
And I really think one of the things we've established today is to say that, hey, don't project those things to them.
Yeah.
Allow them to be who they are and continue to unlearn and relearn. And some of the important goal that I wanted to mention beyond financial is fitness goals.
Wellness.
I feel like we're raising a generation of people who are high on sugar, couch potatoes, who just wants to be sedentary in their life and not move. And I feel like it's a passion that we all must develop as parents in this age, so that we don't raise kids who are unhealthy. It's a personal challenge that I have, and I feel so passionate about it. Like, whatever we can, these children should move. They should get off that's what video games does to them. They just sit down. They just want to sit. It's concerning. I feel like they need to have fitness goals, and it might be something we want to build as a family, where we go on walks, where they prefer outdoors to being indoors, because we were not indoors. We didn't.
We were playing football. I'm playing 10-10.
Doors. Now they just want to sit in. And, and every time you ask them to go out, they're always like, why?
Why? Yes.
I don't want to go anywhere. So I feel like that's an additional goal that we need to set for them.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that, Bosun. Thanks. I will start from where you started from, and this is the way I like to say it. I don't believe in leadership by instruction. I believe in leadership by example. And I think all of these goals are important. And Bosun, thanks a lot for adding that last bit of, fitness goals. It's really important. But when it comes to goal setting, whether for kids or adults, there has to be something motivating you, either internally or externally, intrinsic or intrinsic. And that's one of the reasons for me. Like initially, when kids, somebody mentioned, I can't remember who it was at the beginning, talking about understanding, talking about age appropriate chores. I think it was Kemi talking about chores and all of that. So for me, initially, I used to say, do this and you get this. And then they were doing it and then they will get it. And then they were doing it and then they will get it. And then it got to a stage I said, no, you also have a responsibility to me as kids, the same way I have a responsibility to you as your dad. So it's your responsibility to make sure the house is clean up after yourselves and all of those things, right? So at some point, it was, for them, an external motivation. They will get chocolates, they will get a new game and all of that. And then at another point, I'm like, no, this is the way it should be. Life is about, giving and taking. So you have to also give your time, make sure everywhere is clean. Now, it got to a point that they became creative and they'll be like, okay, Dad, we need to buy this game. It's coming out in 2 weeks' time. What can we do to get this money? And then I'm like, give me options. You are the one coming with a proposal. So you have to think end to end. Don't just come and say you want this. Think of what you can do. Think of the answers you would give me when I say no, and all of that. And then they will come and say, we can clean the windows, we can wash this, we can do that. And then I'll be like, naturally, these are your responsibilities to me. So you are not getting that game. I'm sorry. You are going to do all these things. And sometimes I would give them a very good example. If we had a snowstorm sometime last year and 2 neighbors came, my kids were upstairs cuddling, watching movies, hot chocolate and all of that. And 2 neighbors came, they are friends, and they knocked and they said, we'll clean your backyard for $20. And I said, okay, sounds good. How about I pay you $10? I mean, I have kids that can do it. I can do it myself. So I bargained with them for $10. And then they were like, okay, $10 will do it. And then they did it. While they were clearing it, I called my kids. I said, look at your friends. They came to talk to me about clearing my backyard, shoveling all the snow, and even adding salt to the place when they are done for this amount. And then they got angry and they said, they're cheating us. I said, no, they're not cheating you. I said, they're being creative. They're going from door to door doing this. So they said, okay, the next day. So I paid them. So when they finished, I said, guys, you know the value you have given me. I would have been tired. My back would have been hurting. I bargained with you guys for $10. And you said yes without bargaining. I said, next time, push. Say, no, we want $10 because give me reasons why you think you deserve $10 each. And I ended up paying them $10 each. The next day, it snowed again. My kids came and said, Daddy, you are ready to shovel. I said, yes, you are ready, but I'm not paying you. Go and do it. That's your responsibility to me. And then our elderly neighbor, I said, when you are done shoveling this one, you go to the neighbors and help them. And they don't have to see you. They don't even have to thank you. And you are not getting a dime for doing that. So going back to your question, teaching them about chores, teaching them about responsibilities, making sure they have the right motivation for setting those goals are equally important, because at the end of the day, and Bosun said something about modeling it. We were lucky to do our MBAs at this age. My wife did us 2018 to 2020. I did mine last year, and then I finished this year. So seeing me work hard, schooling, working, doing businesses by the side, and all of that. So when I tell them it's time to read, they have their alarm set. They don't argue because they see us do it at this stage. And then they're like, you've been here all day. How about you move around? How about you use the treadmill? How about you come upstairs? But in the midst of all of that, I was still letting them know that family means everything to me. And Friday night, we still sit together to watch a family movie. And then once I'm done, I'm back downstairs. There was a day they went to bed. I read all through the night. They woke up and I was still reading. So modeling, you can't overemphasize the place of active and visible leadership, showing them the way, doing the things, walking the talk. It's easy to give instructions, but do they see you do it?
Do it, yeah.
It's important that while setting all these goals And that's one of the most powerful concepts in change management. If you want any change to stick, let the leader start by
Have to be the change. Yeah.
demonstrating in being the change they want to see.
Yeah.
And then only can people do as they have said, because they are seeing the leaders take the same steps.
Yeah. So thanks, Taiwo, for that. There's something that while you were speaking that that just bothered me. We're trying to achieve something, which is good. We're trying to get them to do something that is probably positive, but we're now backing it up with a financial motivation. Is it right?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
is it
So
wrong?
there's no right or wrong when it comes to parenting. It's individual choices and the reason behind what you're doing. And I think for me, I wanted to show them, one, there's dignity in hard work. Hard work pays. And that's why sometimes I say, no, you're not getting anything for this, and all of that. There's dignity in labor, there's dignity in hard work. And much more importantly, I want them to see how it feels to work hard and
get paid, rewarded.
Yeah. Now, it's okay to get chocolates and all of those things, but when you get financial rewards, for me, again, like I said, it's thinking end to end. I give you that money, and then I'm watching what you want to do with it. I'm watching how you want to spend it. It's a coaching moment for me, and I won't let it pass. It's a coaching moment for me to say, if I had spent all my money on chocolates, then do you think I would have any money to give you in the first place? Right? So for me, it's end to end. I'm teaching you hard work. I'm showing you how to make money. I'm showing you how to spend the money. I'm showing you how to keep the money and make it multiply. I remember when we were back in Nigeria, my wife was working in church in the city sales department, and we would put the kids, they were 4 and 6 then, we'll put them, go and sell CDs to adults. And then they're like, no, I don't want to. Like, you have to be able to talk to adults. You have to be able to convince people to part with their hard-earned money. So at that age, they were doing that, teaching them life skills, how to sell, how to convince people, building your communication skills. There was one elderly man that said, we went on vacation that year, and he didn't see us for 3 weeks. And he said, I'm not buying any CDs until my friends come back. And then when they got back, the man said, okay, I've missed 3 Sundays because you guys were not here. So he said, sell those CDs to me. And it will pay for the CDs, and sometimes give them a cookie. Someone sells cookies by the side. He just buys and gives them. So that's what I wanted to achieve. It's not because I can't say do this and they will argue with me.
No. The question wasn't necessarily about you. So again, the question wasn't really necessarily about you, because this is a general question as to because I do it and sometimes I feel guilty. Like, can you not just tell them to do it without adding something? Like, are we on the wrong path by trying to incentivize them to do something? It's a fine line between, almost bribing them. I don't want to use the word bribe, but it almost feels like that to me sometimes. But sometimes I can't help it, because sometimes they are not motivated enough, and you feel like just add a bit of ginger, right, and push them. So I know if you it's not just me. I don't know whether anybody else feels that way. Like,
I was going to say that I did understand the question. Like, it's that thin line between what's the impact of incentivizing them. Like, do they eventually always look forward to incentives before they get things done?
Yeah.
Willingly wanting to do those things, which is where we want to get them to. And I think I love what Taiwo said about, hey, there's no perfect formula for this thing. Sometimes you do what works part-time. And I do appreciate those values that the kids can derive from when they get incentivized for things that they get done. But I mean, I'll give myself as an example. Like, if you don't willingly learn to do something, it's going to be a challenge for them. Like, and we really want them to get to that point where they learn to do it. It's like dishes, for example. For a long time, I didn't allow my daughter to use a dishwasher because I kept saying, how will you wash plates with your hands, your 2 hands that got.
We don't even use it till now. It's just there.
And the reason we did was because one day my sister called me while I was having the conversation with my daughter, and then she asked me one question. She said, every time you put your foot down on things, ask yourself, are you raising this child for your generation or hers? Because in her future, there's dishwasher. She's not going to wash dishes with her hands. In fact, in our future, there might not be plates to wash at all, right? There might just be disposable things to use and throw away. So she said the thing is encourage her to be hardworking, not necessarily take away the tool. So I started saying, okay, use the dishwasher. And it took my headache away because every morning I wake up, my kitchen is clean. And I mean, the elves but I know that even when she uses the dishwasher, there are things she can't use the dishwasher for. So her skills of being able to wash with her hands will come in when she's cleaning the gas or washing the pots or stuff like that, which is I mean, all good. So I mean, what I'm trying to say with giving incentives is we want to balance them sometimes for them to know that, hey, I don't have to
do this.
Right.
You have to do this because it's a chore in the house and you have to play your part. I never fail to remind my kids that they are living rent-free. They are not, I mean, they don't have any contribution into this house. This is hard work of me and my husband. So the least you can do is play your part in this house, doing the things that we ask you to do once in a while.
Until you get the comment that, but you as a parent, you're obligated to provide a roof over my head, and then you're like, yeah. But I think you do. I mean, you all do make a lot of great points. I think even we as adults, we need motivation sometimes, right? And when the kids start getting to the point where unless they have some incentive to do something, they wouldn't do it. That's when it's a problem. Right. So I guess with me, sometimes, I mean, my kids will want Roblox and stuff and Robux. And it's never because you did this, that's why you get Robux, right? They understand that it's out of the goodness of my own heart. I feel like, oh, you deserve it. And I give it to you. But it's not because you did the laundry. It's not because you ended up sweeping your room or doing this. It's more of those are the things that you need to do anyway. So you don't have to get paid, right? So it's not like I say, oh, go load the dishwasher. And you're like, well, how much Robux am I going to get today? No. So it's, they have to make sure they divorce themselves from, unless they have an incentive, then they can do this, And to your point too, Bosun, you also mentioned the point about how you develop the kids for their future, right? It's also being able to make sure like they have that creativity in them, that juice is to be flowing at all times, right? Always have those options available. Like you can hit a roadblock for something. They have to think about what are the other ways to do things better, right? It's like, okay, even if the dishwasher were to be broken today, how else can I wash the dishes? What else can I do? Like they have to be able to get to that point, like they have those options of, even coming up with those creative ways to actually make money and things like that. So I think it's really giving them those options also to make sure that they have the ability to create those options for themselves and go explore the creativity, because these kids are talented by nature, right? And they have no fears, they have no limits. We put those limits on them. So being able to allow them to explore it is really important.
So yeah, let me quickly add something to that. Banke, when we're talking, you talked about setting goals. You talked about, if your kid is a bully and you want to raise them to be kind and empathetic and all of that, and you're setting goals for them. So again, for me, it's about creating a balance. No kid of mine would say, if I don't get this, I won't do this. No, I've just said, this is what I do. And I said, it's even age specific. At that very little age, I want to motivate them. In summer of this year, we had guests from Nigeria. My kids vacated their room for 5 weeks, and then they slept on the pull-out sofa in the living room. And when our guests left, I called both of them and I thanked them for willingly vacating their room, right? And then I gave them $50 each. And then they were like, what for? And I smiled. I said, that is rent for willingly vacating your room. And then they were like, oh, thanks, Dad. We didn't expect it. We didn't see this coming. I said, yes, this is a lesson in kindness. Always be kind to people, especially when you don't expect a reward. Those people can pay you back. The best they
Absolutely.
can do is when you go back to Nigeria and then we go to stay with them, they also, make you feel very welcome. For me, it was a teachable moment. And I'm also teaching them generosity. They didn't ask for it, and I did it. Even in setting goals, when they don't meet those goals within the timeline stipulated, what do we do? How do we handle it? When there are small goals on their way to the bigger goals, short-term goals, how do we celebrate those goals? How do we reinforce those behaviors? And then how do we teach our children to cope with failure? One book that every child of mine must read is Failing Forward. Because because every child wants to celebrate success. My younger son plays FIFA. He trashes all of us. So I went to bring a champion, my friend's son, and then he trashed the champion too. But recently he played with someone. If he loses, he's not playing again. But now he played with someone, that person won him 3-1, and he was laughing. He said, Dad, it's because it's PS. Let him try me on Xbox. I'm going to deal with him. And then I'm like, yes. And he was smiling. So he has grown. We have managed him. We have encouraged him to the point where failure is a part of life.
Right.
Excellence in all things. That is who we are, right? But then life happens. And when life happens and you don't meet up with that goal at that point in time, how do you handle it? And I think that's also very important.
I think we should wrap this up very quickly. I know one more goal that people are now consciously trying to add to their children's list is learning languages. So whether it's French, Spanish, or whether it's our own very local language. So now we have so many people that are like there's this company, Akeko Yoruba, that is teaching kids how to speak Yoruba, and so many people are signing up for that. There's myself as well. I also have Yoruba teachers, and Kemi's children are part of that. Oh my God. Okay, so there's learning languages, which is something that maybe the local one is a bit selfish on our part because we want our kids to know our culture, to know their culture, to be able to converse, listen to us. I mean, it's fun when we're all at home and we can all understand each other. But some people are giving their kids options, which is learn French, learn Spanish. You don't know where you will end up today in the future, but you want to give your child a head start. Those people that learned how to speak French can now enter Canada. So again, setting goals is also a way of advancing our kids' life. They might learn something today. It might be something that they will use in the next 20 years. It might not even be something that they would find useful today. So language learning is one thing that I know that has become a critical part of parents, just adding to the list. But finally, to talk about how to set the goals. Do we still ask kids to write goals down, or do you just talk about it? Like, I know what you don't write down, you don't follow through, but is that an active process to actually setting goals? I think that should be the last thing that we should talk about. Kemi, you want to go first? And if you're not doing it, don't say you are, but you can commit that you will start today.
Yes. I mean, so generally we would talk about it as opposed to write, right? And I think there is a lot of power in writing it so that you can always see it and go back to it. Yeah. Also to be able to measure your accomplishments and check it off. Because
absolutely,
personally for me, when I do write down certain things and I'm able to go back and check it off, I have that, the little me is in there cheering for myself, like, yes, I did it. And you have that little satisfaction. I think there's a huge power and satisfaction in actually seeing the goals and writing it and checking it off. So I think it is important, which is one of the things that I would definitely like to implement with my kids and make sure we're actively working towards reviewing it and also checking it off. Like we'll generally talk about it, we'll check in with one another and stuff like that. But I do think that it's important to write it down and check on it.
Okay.
And celebrate.
Awesome.
And also celebrate.
I actually agree. I mean, if it's not written, it's hard to measure progress. It's not something we do. We plan our goals ahead as parents, but it's not something we discuss with the children and set expectations for what to come. But we really, and I mean, we just did that 2 days ago. We really didn't ask them to write it down. So I'm taking that away as well for them to write it down. But I want to share an experience personally. Like when I went to Nigeria sometimes this year, and what I was looking for amongst all the things that I went to do was my bag of notes. In those notes, I wrote down my visions, I wrote down my goals and everything. And I started doing that as a teenager, and I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it anymore. I mean, the papers were destroyed and stuff, but I remember some of the things I wrote down and how in some ways they manifested themselves today, right? So if I think about these things, I also think that it's something we should pass on to our children. If they can write it down, look back and see how far they've come, it would be some rewarding moment for them as well. So yeah, I want to take that away to encourage them to write as well.
Nice. Taiwo.
Yeah, and to add to that, we did that for like 2 years. Honestly, I didn't do it we did it last year. I didn't do it this year. I was just my hands were too full. We talked about it, but we didn't write it. But what we do is there's a canvas on their walls. We write our goals and then they paste it there. There's a lot of motivation and the drive to achieve when your eyes keep making contact with what you've written. And like Bosun said, if it's not written, then how do you measure it? And I tell them it has to be SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Achievable because, again, those goals have to be age-specific. You have to set goals that, and my friends started teaching our kids, taking them to Chinese class, talking about language goals. And we were like, why? She said, that's the language of the future. I'm like, yes, their brains are expandable, but they're in full French immersion. Now their English is terrible. And now you're adding Chinese to it. Let's be calming down as parents, So I think for me, because life also happens, distractions happen, those written goals help us stay the course so we don't get distracted. And the way I like to explain it to kids is like, when you write your goals down, it's like putting an address, locking it on Google Map. So even if you are driving, and you're driving, right, you see different routes, different exits, but you don't take them because you are focused on that goal, because you have locked it in, right? So when you write your goals down, it's like a compass. It guides you to that destination because you keep going back, you keep looking at it, you keep making adjustments, and you don't kill yourself. The ones you don't achieve, you either yank it off or you carry it.
You strategize.
Yeah. So for me, it's important to write. I personally was looking at my notes, similar to Bosun recently, and then I came with my notes to Canada. I came with my cards. I love cards. I brought everything. But from 2014 or so, my notes have been on Samsung. So when I even change phones, all my notes come with me. And then I can make reference to goals I've set as far back as 2014. And there's that beam of satisfaction when I check them off, like done. This one's I didn't do. I just think to myself, I can't come and kill myself. And I move on. So I think it's powerful writing
to write it down
and keeping it in a place where
you can see it.
And sometimes we even add some vision board into it. Oh, I want to be my younger son really loves soccer and he loves swimming. And today they are both junior lifeguards, right? Today they are doing soccer tryouts. They didn't pick him. He was not really broken-hearted, but it was like, it's really painful. I practiced that. I said, don't worry about it. It's an event. We'll keep practicing for the next one. So putting pictures of professional swimmers, professional footballers on their vision board lets them know that I can be this, I can achieve this. And if I don't, I won't kill myself. And guess what? Those goals change. Their desires change.
Yeah.
There's that modification that happens of their own free will. And we discuss it. And then we make space for it. And that's why when we write our goals, the pens we use are erasable pens. Because when life happens, we can easily erase something
Change
and
it,
modify it. And that's the one of the only reasons why I use those pens. I carry them everywhere I go.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great feedback. Honestly, my own experience is different. I've never sat with kids to discuss goals. So it's, it's just refreshing to know that this is something that I'm going to have to start doing myself. Like, just sitting there, even to have the conversation. I know, they come and say, oh, I want to do this, but just saying at the beginning of the year, this is what I would like to achieve this year, is a powerful thing to get your child to commit to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And just write it down. And then, like even when you're in the bank and you have a target, every quarter you come and present your case and say, this is what I've achieved, this is the variance, this is why I haven't achieved it. And at the end of the year, we'll sit again and review it. And we talk about it, right? And say, okay, we were able to achieve this. Well done. You could not. Try. Do you want to try again? So basically just learning how to be a better parent. Because in my head, my own goals are always in my head. I don't have to write it down and I achieve my goals. But some people cannot achieve their goals by keeping their goals in their head. So basically we have to just learn to do things better so that we have better outcomes. So I think that's as far as
if I can just add one final thought to that, I think also reappraising is very important in project teams. Bosun will know this. We call them lessons learned, right? So you go back to say you achieved these goals and these goals and these goals. What did you do to make you achieve them? What could you have done differently? These ones we didn't achieve them. Were they too much of a stretch goal? Should we have, reduced the size of the goal? Okay, what can we do better next time? And then even for us as parents, we ask for feedback. Our parenting style, what do you think we should change? Right. And then, and then they say, you're always yelling, you're always doing this, you're always doing that. I said,
I don't know whether, we're there yet. Like, we want to know how we're parenting for real.
Well,
but there's power in actually getting that feedback.
I know, right?
And when we do get that feedback, we as parents really have to be ready to receive it and be deliberate about what we do about it. Because I think it's also important to just also understand how they see us. So at least that way we can make those adjustments.
Absolutely.
That's a very true statement. However difficult.
Yes.
Oh Lord. Okay. That's a good take.
Smiling.
I'm ready for it.
So we say at the end, so it's like saying at the end of the year, you ask for your report card and say, okay, come here and say, tell me how I did this year and tell me how you like me to do better next year. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'll give one quick example. My son has said that once before, and he said, you walk too much because you're always in meetings. And sometimes he has actually said, maybe late at night, he'll say, you need to go to bed so that you can have enough energy for your meetings. So I'm always like, he's definitely seeing me working too much. He wants me to relax and he wants me to go to bed early. See, that's kind of the things that I take away. But again, it's just one of those things that we should be able to hear from them so we know what they're saying. Because again, we go back to our talk about modeling. Are we modeling always working all the time? Or are we modeling have a balanced life? So,
and if they're not telling you about your parenting skills, they are going to be telling other people.
Yes.
When you go to gatherings, they will make it a point of, is that they're mimicking you or they are joking about it because they are not asking them, but you will definitely hear it somewhere that my mommy is always doing X, Y, Z. So
Yeah.
you're right. It's better to have a mature conversation with them to say, how can I be a better parent? Oh my God, the Nigerian in me is like, not possible, but that's great feedback. I don't think there is anything else that we haven't spoken about. Again, the idea of this and for who would listen is to, I mean, if you love your kids, you would be interested in knowing how to help them achieve who God has said they will be. So now the session is ended. Again, my name is Bankole. I'm the host of ParentPulse. And with me, this beautiful lady, Bosun Bankole, and Mrs. Dixon, beautiful as well, and our very own Taiwo Julius. It's been so great just talking to you. I have personally learned a lot, and I'm going to be, listening again because I wasn't taking notes. I'm going to have to create my own notes. It's a good time to set the right path for 2024. And hopefully by the end of the year, we can come back together again to talk about how we did practicing some of the things that we spoke about today. I certainly have a lot to put into my own world. So it's been great. I don't know if Kemi, you have any last word?
No, I think I would just share that this has been a really great conversation. In terms of just learning from, all of you and hearing, how you parent, what you do, what kind of options you give your kids, and how you even approach it. I think is really great. I'm certainly taking a lot away from this. Definitely, I would love to get that report card, deliberately getting that report card from my kids, because I'm certainly interested in that.
Yeah.
And also being able to sit with them and have those goal conversations, be more specific and more, deliberate about having them with them. So I think those are big things that I'm taking away today, and a lot more.
Thank you. Taiwo?
Yeah, I think this has been really eye-opening for me, and I'm very humbled to hear what other parents do, and again,
and not do.
And not do. Again, it's not a competition. We are not vying for the best parents of the year. We are just exchanging ideas in how we do things, and I've learned one or two things from every one of you. I think this is a time well spent, and I really, really did enjoy the conversations. It was robust, it was free, it was honest, and I really do appreciate all the thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Bankole, last word?
I do share the sentiment of everyone. I think it's a great conversation, one that we should continue to have, because the more we talk about parenting, the more we learn, and the more we change our ways, right? For those of us ingrained in the Nigerian ways. I just want to say finally to every parent that would be watching this, pat yourself on the back. There's no better parent that your child could have than you. And I think you're equipped with all the wisdom, strength, and resources that you need to raise that additional blessing that we need in our generation today. Yes, pat yourself on the back. I think we're all on the right path.
Thank you. Session ended. Okay, Eshego.
Thank you.